Mark Rogers TV back with you for week 5 of our college football predictions. Can we just forget about week 4? Can we really do that? Is that possible? Can I wipe it from my record? Of course I can't. 12-4 overall wasn't horrible. 12-4 was decent. I like to do around 85% for the season. Did last year at almost 87%, 222-44. So we aim for like 85%, close to it, straight up. Against the spread, like to do about 60-65%, especially those confidence picks against the spread. We were 6-10 against the spread last week and 2-2 in our confidence picks against the spread. Had some really close calls, and that's been the nature of what's happened this season. Brett Hundley gets hurt, missed that pick a couple weeks ago. Michigan State gives up a 4th and 2 a couple weeks ago, and I can cry and whine for forever on this. Let's go to week 5's picks. Let's start with Michigan State and Wyoming, with the Spartans giving 28. They scored 73 last week. They're at home. Michigan State, people, they have an offense now. It's not just slugging it out on the ground. They can open it up. They can score points. They will continue to work on the passing game with Connor Cook and experience, not elite wide receivers, but experienced wide receivers who get the job done. They're going to cover the 28 points against Wyoming at home. All right, could this be a trap game? Michigan, Minnesota. Gophers had a nice regular season last year at 8-4. Michigan down for them at 7-5, 7-6 after the bowl loss. And Michigan blasted Minnesota last year. Showed the talent discrepancy, 42-13. These are top 10 or 15 recruiting classes that Brady Hoke's brought in. We did a post on that this week. The coordinators are in place with great experience and great resumes. The talent's there. What is gone wrong with this team? They can't block anybody up front. The defense has played pretty well, but 0 touchdowns against 2 Power 5 conference teams, Notre Dame and Utah. Minnesota looked horrible against TCU. Mitch Leidner's back. He should be able to be effective running the football. Minnesota, enough on offense, especially since Michigan. You would think that the pride would well up for the Wolverines and they would lash out on somebody, and Minnesota could be that team. It could happen, but I think the issues run deeper than that. Michigan defeats Minnesota, but in a confidence pick. I will take the Gophers and take 13 points. Minnesota plus 13, confidence pick. Take Michigan to win. Baylor, Iowa State. Road game here. Don't necessarily like to fall into this, but I will. I hesitated because Baylor's missing some elite speed on the outside at wide receiver, but they go 4-5 deep at wide receiver. I think they'll be fine there. Bryce Petty, with a week off, is ready to cut loose. Now, Iowa State, consider they've played really well. They played well at home or on the road at Iowa, winning that game on a last-second field goal. They played really well at home against Kansas State. Almost pulled off the win, lost it late. So Iowa State's a team that plays much better than they typically do. When they're at home, they play better, and everybody does, but especially Iowa State. If you look through the years, they're a decent team at home, horrible on the road. They got blasted by Baylor by 64 points last year, and I think it's much of the same here. Even though, again, they're playing in Ames, Iowa, I like Baylor to cover 21 in a confidence pick. Baylor minus 21 against Iowa State. Bears romp. This game has like 51-17 all over it. Wisconsin, South Florida, take the points, 34.5. I know Wisconsin can rip off 70 against a team like a South Florida. They did it last week against Bowling Green running the football, but they'll call off the dogs, and South Florida will generate some offense, and Wisconsin wins easily, but I'll take South Florida plus 34.5 points. Kansas State, UTEP, ditto there. UTEP played a really good game a few weeks ago against Texas Tech. Take UTEP plus the 26.5. K-State in no mood to really blow out anyone. That's not the way they play. So I'm expecting K-State to win comfortably, but again, I'll take the 26.5 there. Auburn sends a message, wipes out Louisiana Tech. Take the Tigers minus 32. They've had 10 days since that. I'm not going to call it a poor showing because it was on the road at Kansas State, a top 20 team. Kansas State played really well, but Auburn's better than that. Should have won that game by a couple touchdowns. Auburn minus 32 against Louisiana Tech. Take the Tigers to cover. South Carolina, Missouri. Love this matchup. Would like to see this game. South Carolina, Missouri plus 6 for the Tigers. on the road at South Carolina. Missouri counted out during the preseason, not ranked. Then they played themselves into the rankings with a win at Central Florida 38-10. They looked great there. They looked great the first 3 games, then thud at home against Indiana. That surprised me more than anything in college football last week. South Carolina, the big win against Georgia, the embarrassment against Texas A&M. They played well against East Carolina, and that win is gaining more and more points by the week for South Carolina. So I do like the Gamecocks to defeat Mizzou, and we've previewed this on a number of posts, so check it out on iTalk SEC and on our radio program that's posted on Dr. SEC's radio network. So check out that analysis there. But we like South Carolina to defeat the Missouri Tigers. Take Mizzou, though, plus the 6. Notre Dame, Syracuse. Notre Dame, yeah, people are riding the Notre Dame bandwagon. I know they've jumped in the polls from like 18-8, but in beating who? Rice, Michigan. Michigan on paper, that looks like a big win. It's not this year, 31-0. And then they knocked out, Purdue. Purdue's one of the worst Power 5 teams in America. So this is going to be a bit of a test. Who would have thought that Syracuse was going to be the best team that Notre Dame was going to play in the first 4 weeks of the season? But that's the deal. At the Carrier Dome in a quasi-ACC game. So Notre Dame wins it. They cover 9.5. I'm a bit hesitant there. We will see how good the Irish are on down the line against Florida State, Louisville, Stanford, USC, etc. Okay, might be the best matchup of the week. Texas A&M taking on Arkansas. Hogs and Aggies at Cowboys Stadium. This is going to be an annual event in Jerry's world for the next 10 years. Texas A&M will throw, they'll run. Arkansas will run better than any team in the SEC. And they usually do their best running against non-conference opponents like they did against Texas Tech. Texas A&M is better on defense. They have the athletes. They've recruited them. They're young. They're not an elite defense by any stretch. They won't be this season, but they're better. Arkansas plus 9.5, but Texas A&M will win this game. All right, we got USC. We got Oregon State. I like USC to cover the 8 points at home. Yeah, they have some issues passing the football. Still depleted in areas, but their defensive talent is off the charts good. I know they went to BC and lost. And again, depth issues show up in special teams and in that second and third team units along the offensive and defensive fronts. So USC will slug it out against Oregon State. They'll get the win. They've got superior talent. So take USC minus 8. Stanford-Washington, I like the Huskies to keep it close at home, take the 8 points with Washington, but Stanford does win the game. They don't play a style of football that typically lends itself to blowing out good teams. Yes, they blew out Army and UC Davis, but Washington hangs in it at home, and they've given Stanford problems the last 2 years. 31-28 game last year, and they upset the Cardinal 2 years ago, so I like Washington plus 8. Georgia, Tennessee. The Vols could have pulled off the upset at Knoxville last year. That was the game that Georgia lost half its offense due to injuries, Keith Marshall, and on down the line. Georgia wins over Tennessee at Sanford Stadium, but I like Tennessee. They've got playmaking ability on the outside, even though Von Pearson is out for this game, and Josh Smith has an ankle issue. They still have wide receivers to get downfield, starting, of course, with Marquez North, Josh Malone, and the like, to test Georgia's bad secondary, young secondary, highly touted. They'll get better, but right now it's pretty bad. So if Tennessee can give Justin Worley some time, which is a huge if against Georgia's defense, and considering Tennessee's inexperience and their lack of depth on offense at the line position, take Tennessee plus the 17. Georgia wins the game. Florida State, North Carolina State. There's no reason Florida State should not cover 18.5. Should I make that a confidence pick? Well, they're on the road. Jameis Winston's back on the road against North Carolina State, 18.5. Man, I might change my mind and make this a confidence pick. Florida State should blow out North Carolina State. The Wolfpack, I talked to a bunch of ACC people this offseason. They said they're going to be improved. From 3-9, they're going to be so much improved. But we don't know this at this point. They played Old Dominion and Elon, and along with Vandy, the worst non-conference schedule in college football. They're 4-0. Maybe Florida State's going to want to go out and put down the hammer on North Carolina State. I think they do. We'll take Florida State minus the 18.5 against North Carolina State. All right, Buckeyes, Cincinnati. I think this is going to be close. A lot of people have talked about it across the nation as a possible upset alert. I think that's true, but Ohio State's too talented. They're at home. Cincinnati will throw it with Gunnar Kiel, a former 5-star recruit. Ohio State wins. Take Cincinnati plus 16.5 points. That's a lot of points against an Ohio State offense that's struggling against better competition. Struggled against Navy, Virginia Tech. Yeah, they blew out Kent State. Didn't mean anything. Cincinnati plus the 16.5. Ole Miss, Memphis. We saw Memphis and what they could do against UCLA a few weeks ago and scoring 35 points. Ole Miss has risen to top 10 in the country, but again, like Notre Dame, who have they beaten? Boise State's a decent team. They've beat up on a lot of bad competition. Now they're playing a little bit better team before they step into the SEC against Alabama. Rebs could be looking ahead to Alabama. So let's take Memphis plus the 21 against Ole Miss. Rebels do win fairly comfortably by a couple of scores. Nebraska-Illinois. Nebraska coming off the emotional win against Miami at home. That was a really hard-fought game. They looked really good. Nebraska doesn't look good on consecutive weeks these days under Bo Pelini. It's not old Nebraska. They're going to have a bit of a letdown before they jump into better competition in the Big Ten. So take Illinois plus 20.5 against Nebraska, but again, Nebraska wins by a couple scores. Clemson, North Carolina. Take North Carolina plus the 14.5. I know they gave up 70 last week. Clemson's much better. North Carolina has some of the best talent in the ACC. It's inexplicable what happened against East Carolina, but I'm expecting the Tar Heels to bounce back somewhat, keep it close enough. 14.5 with North Carolina. Clemson Tigers win the game. And finally, a confidence pick here. Kentucky and Vanderbilt. I know Vanderbilt's been atrocious this year. I can't explain it. I know they lost their secondary. They lost Jordan Matthews. They lost Carter Samuels at quarterback, but they had Pat Robinette there late in the season going 9-4. So he had all this experience coming into 2014. Now it looks like Stephen Rivers runs the offense despite his deplorable stats. Vandy, they put a bit of a scare in South Carolina last week. They got a couple kick returns for touchdowns. Expect Kentucky to kick it away from that kid and maybe give good field position to Vandy. And they need it. Believe it. Their offense needs some serious help. So the field position could help Vanderbilt in the kicking game. Take Kentucky to win, but I like Vandy in a confidence pick, plus the 18 points here. Vandy plus 18. Kentucky does win the game at home. All right, there are our picks. Would love to hear from you. Give us your picks of the week. Tell us where we missed it. And hopefully we don't go 6-10 again, because I don't ever want to go 6-10 again. Let's not do it this week. So there are picks. Again, we want to hear from you right here on Mark Rogers TV.